FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and today is May 28th, 2020. We're almost through with May. It looks like if you had sold in May, you would have taken a huge hit. You'd have had huge losses or missed major profit opportunities, particularly in precious metals. The stocks have really been hot lately, and we found over time that one of the best ways, not saying the only way to really participate in the sector, is through common stock warrants. And the guru of common stock warrants, the guy who probably has forgotten more than I'll ever know, is our good friend Dudley Baker, and his site is commonstockwarrants.com. Dudley, you have probably the most extensive warrant database, particularly for Canadian stocks, of just about anybody out there. How did you get into this?
Hi, Kerry. Yeah, I kind of stumbled into this whole thing. It was kind of an interesting story. I've kind of got an accounting background and with Excel and all kind of stuff and an awareness. And way back in 2004, I was at one of the gold shows in Las Vegas, just as Joe Blow, average investor. I've always been interested in this sector. And Frank Holmes was on the podium, and Frank mentioned stock warrants. And I thought a light bulb went off. I says, damn, why didn't I think of that? So then I started running around to all of the booths with all the mining companies. You guys got any stock warrants that are trading? Yada, yada, yada. And then I was so sure when I got back home, I was still living in Mexico at the time. And so there was another buddy, we had a Canadian buddy, we'd rendezvoused in Vegas for the show. And then we drove all the way back, like a 3-hour journey, a 3-day journey coming back. And I was so excited. I knew I was going to get back home. I was going to Google and I was going to find a service out there and all of this. And I got back and it's like, wow, nothing. There's no service. I can't believe this. And so some other friends said, Dudley, you ought to just do this yourself, put all this stuff together. And that's kind of how it evolved, and I spent several times, home base for me was back then was San Antonio, Texas. And that's where Frank Holmes and his whole operation is. So I visited with Frank and his complete team there in San Antonio a few days and got all my juices going, and it was just kind of an evolution. And then really I started the old name, some of your listeners may know, was Precious Metals Warrants. Right. And I guess it was 2013, decided, we need to come into the U.S. markets, because there were so many warrants trading on the biotechs and pharmaceutical companies and so many of the banks back at that time. And so we expanded into the U.S. market. So now there's quite a variety of stock warrants with all kind of different industries out there. So a little something for everybody. I know probably a lot of your listeners are more interested in the metal space and the miners, et cetera. But and we've got some good opportunities there with the warrants. But for those that are interested in just the general stock market, there are a lot of the warrants trading in the different sectors. So it's I want to say we got you covered in the United States and Canada with all the stock warrants trading in all industries, all sectors. Something there for everybody. Right. But what I wanted to mention, if I may here, sure. I was just reviewing your site just before we started talking, and you've got so much great content and interview here. So speaking to my followers that are going to be listening to this, be sure to visit Kerry's site, the financialsurvivalnetwork.com, and sign up for on his email list, because he's got a lot of great interviews here, and that's cool. And if those of you that are listening are not familiar with me, you can just visit my site, commonstockwarrants.com, sign up for my free list, and that way you stay in touch with both of us.
Absolutely.
But no, this is incredible times. I know you're probably going to ask me a leading question here in a minute, but it's like, I'm looking at these markets here and I'm thinking, how is the Dow back over 25,000?
Yeah. Isn't that a great question? And
wow, I always want to be an optimistic guy. So I hate those that are negative all the time on all the markets and all this stuff. So I like to be positive, but it's like, wow, is this the greatest disconnect ever or what? How can the markets continue to rally when we know almost intuitively, we know there has to be another shoe to drop? With all the bad news reporting, how do you have earnings when you've got no revenues? So it's just incredible what still has to be coming as far as I'm concerned.
Well, you know what they say, Dudley, stocks climb on a wall of worry. We've never had a wall this high for them to climb on before. And, look, intuitively, you think this was really the big one. This is the utter collapse. But then, on the other hand, maybe stuff is going to open up within another month. Everything will be back to so-called normal. We'll just have 10 times more debt, and we just put off the day of reckoning to another time. And maybe that's really what's happened here. Maybe they've successfully kicked the can down the road yet one more time.
Yeah, no, that's possible. Now, you think with the amount of paper that's been printed here, it's like, how far down the road can you kick it? I mean, it's like, I like to say, if you and I had been having this conversation back in November and December, we still would have, many of our comments would be the same, thinking that, well, with all the debt in the world and everything, this has to be a great time for our gold and for our miners and all of this stuff. Well, now it's like, wow, it's like it's an even incredibly more compelling argument, for our whole space. And I just don't know why does it have to be kicked down the road for years? It seems like this is right in front of us.
I know.
Right in front of us here.
It's really quite shocking. Well, it's just going to resolve itself. But let's talk back to warrants here. Okay. I guess we got to define what a warrant is, because there's probably some of you out there that don't know. And then we got to differentiate between publicly traded warrants and private warrants.
Yeah, you bet. So, a warrant is, in this case, it's a security. It's issued by the company, giving the holder the right to acquire the underlying stock at a specific price, and it's got a specific expiration date. So the definition is very, very similar to like a stock option. But in this case, where an option, you and I could be the creators of this option. Chicago Board of Trade, all this good stuff, where warrants are actually created by the company. And so in my database, we just cover the warrants that are trading, that are publicly trading, that you and I can go out tomorrow and buy these things. Now, virtually all of the companies, I'm going to say, probably have stock warrants in their equity structure, because so many of the private placements, and this would be again in all industries that have a private placement, more often than not, there is a stock warrant included in that private placement. Now, to me, I've always looked at it. If it's in a private placement, that's fine. But if I'm not participating in the placement, what good's it going to do for me? But so to me, it would be an incredible monster database with little or no way to make money out of it. Because, if you can't buy and sell these warrants, what good is it? I mean, it would take me a mammoth amount of time. I'm not sure there's enough time in the world to create such an animal. And I don't think it would be worthwhile to anybody to have access to that. But the deal is always, I always say that if an investor, getting back more maybe to our sector here, if an investor has the opportunity to participate in a private placement, on a company that you like, that has a stock warrant attached to it, you definitely need to consider that. And I've done many private placements in the past myself, and so I always say it starts with a company that you like, whether that's a private placement or whether that's a publicly traded warrant. Has to be something to get your attention. I really like XYZ Gold. Okay, well, great. If you see XYZ Gold's got a warrant trading, then by all means, take a look at it, find out what are the terms, how long is the warrant good for, how much time is remaining to it expires, etc. But it's all about that underlying company. And that's what's the most important thing. And if somebody has an opportunity to participate in a private placement, by all means, go for that if possible.
Right. So don't warrants, though, actually put downward pressure on the stock because there's a potential overhang of shares on the market?
I can argue that both ways. And I'd say yes and no. But the reality is that when those warrants are exercised, and I'll give you an example here, is there's a lot more cash that comes into the kitty, to the company. Mm-hmm. One of the companies that has warrants trading, I just saw some news this morning. It's not the trading warrant. They had some other warrants that were issued in connection with another event, but Equinox Gold. So one of my big top companies that I really like, they had X number of warrants that were exercised, and they just brought 145 million cash into the kitty. That's a lot of friggin' money, and they've still got a great equity structure. And so, maybe that created, we were off a little bit yesterday, and maybe this news creates some downside pressure because, as the warrants are exercised, then people are going to get the shares. They may immediately want to sell the shares, into the market. And so, that can have an effect. But I always say it's probably a temporary effect. I don't look at that being long-term damage.
Right.
But I look at Equinox Gold, and they've done a lot in the last year or so. They have a U.S. listing under and also on the Toronto Exchange, and these guys are sitting now with almost 500 million of cash, just shy of 500 million. A lot of production, an incredible story, just an incredible story that they're in the process of building. So that's kind of been one of the companies with warrants. They've got a warrant trading that right now it's a little bit shorter life than I really like. We've only got about a year and a half remaining. I'm slightly concerned with that, even though I think that it could still be a great 2, 3, 4, 5 times from today's price. It's something to look at, but it just kind of comes with a little pause. Let us take a good look and see if we want to take a look at this. I've been on board for a long time, so I'm in the money, so to speak, and got a nice profit. But I'm looking for substantially higher prices. But no, it's that's cool. We had in our sector as our listeners know, we can have monster run up and then all of a sudden the bottom falls out, So here on Monday, which was a holiday in the United States for Memorial Day, Canadian markets were open. Another one of our top companies, I've got a nice position on the warrants that were still trading in Canada, hit a high on Monday, and that's on Grand Columbia Gold.
Right.
So the stock and the warrants, they were up over 12%, hitting new 52-week highs and all this stuff. And then the next day when the U.S. market opens and gold goes down, it's like we lost 10 or 12%. So it's like it's an incredible yo-yo. So it's always a deal. I'm not in here trying to day trade these things. So it's like I'm on board for the longer term, and I think we've got a lot of upside potential in the gold and silver and miners that I'm not in here to try to scalp a little bit, but it's just an observation that, if those in the United States that are buying the IBMs of the world, the Microsofts of the world to see 10 to 20% movement on any given day would be going crazy, where we're kind of used to it. We may not like it, but it's kind of part of our world in the mining space.
Yep, that's so true. And so obviously you got to track down, there's a lot of different warrants. When I look at your list here, it's kind of mind-numbing. There's so many of them here. How do you narrow them down to figure out which ones you'd actually want to buy?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Silver One Resources is an exploration and development company backed by strategic investors Eric Sprott and SSR Mining. At Silver One's Candelaria Mine project in Nevada, there is already a historic resource estimated at 127 million ounces of silver, which Silver One is developing and advancing. The company's Phoenix Silver project, located within the Arizona Silver Belt, is an early-stage exploration project on which native silver vein fragments have been discovered near surface. One grab sample assayed an astounding 14,688 ounces per ton. Yes, that's right, ounces, not grams. Silver One has tremendous exploration potential, is extremely leveraged to the price of silver, and is cashed up and poised to increase shareholder value. Silver One trades in New York under the ticker SLVRF and in Toronto under the ticker SVE. To learn more, go to silverone.com. That's silverone.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Well, it starts with, for me, just a personal interest. And I always say it starts with the company. And I'd say that I like to think that it's something here for everybody. But I would, in our database, the top line menu is all sortable. You sort it by company name, you can sort it by symbol, you can sort by expiration date. So it happens so fast, you almost don't even see it happening. And so that would be one thing. And you can sort it by industry, whether that's the miners, whether that's the biotechs. I've got it separated for the Canadians, a Canadian database and a U.S. database. But everything is sortable. So you could sort by industry. You could sort by the expiration date. So what is the furthest warrant out there? What's the longest term? For a long time, that was the Grand Columbia Gold. We still have almost 4 years of remaining life on that Grand Columbia Gold warrant. It's deep in the money. I think it's still got a lot more to go, but it's going to cost you more, $5, $6 for that warrant. I'm always a cheapy guy. So, I came in below $1. So I've got a nice profit already, as do a lot of my subscribers. I still think we've got a lot more upside potential. And again, the same thing with Grand Columbia Gold. They're sitting here today with about $100 million in cash in the bank. So it's, in the past, I'm down here playing with 5 cent, 10 cent stocks and everything. I still love those. I have a lot in my portfolio, and a lot of them just called the dogs and cats. But these dogs and cats are going to have their day again.
Yeah, and, like they did before.
I still love a lot of the stories. I know we have to be careful, but I think, a lot of these opportunities, that's where they're going to easily be 10 baggers, 20 baggers, 50 baggers, 5 cent stock go to $1, that's 20 times. So there's a lot of good stuff, I think, that's going to be coming down the pike in our sector.
Hey, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that one of the things you give out as a benefit of your membership on commonstockwarrants.com is the Stock Warrant Handbook, which really goes into a lot of these things and helps you understand the market, because you are dealing with things that have a time. It's like you buy some Tylenol in the pharmacy. It's got a date stamp on it. Good till used by. Used by such and such date. And that's the way these warrants work. So you have to be careful. I remember in 2011, I missed the exercise date on one, and it was well into the money, and I lost $5,000. I'll never forget that. That was like the biggest burn. To this day, I've lost a lot more money than that on a lot of different stocks, but that one just sticks in my craw the worst.
Yeah, and that's one thing on the warrants that you do need, as the warrant holder, you do need to take action. Where, as I recall, it's been a long time since I've done much with the stock options. But it used to be if a stock option expired and you were in the money, that money actually ended up in your account.
Right.
So you did not have to be proactive. But with a warrant, you do. So you can't really go to sleep. So thank goodness it was only 5,000. So it could have been worse.
Yeah. Oh man.
We'll try to stay in touch. Now I've always got a little tickler on our website in the upper left-hand corner. Warrants expiring soon.
I noticed that. That is a great addition.
And so it gives you a heads up, But again, we all need to be proactive if especially if you've got a substantial amount of money tied up in some of these, and I do. Yeah. But I always look at it. So don't just go ballistic and say, "Oh, I got to have stock warrants." It's always a stock warrant on what? What is the company? And for most people, it should probably only be a percentage of your portfolio. Whether that means 20% or 25%. Because you don't want to go all in. And everything you've got is on stock warrants. In essence, everything's got an expiration date. And
it's a derivative. Warrants are derivatives, right?
Yeah. And to me, that just doesn't make sense to do it. So you do need to have the list, look at the list, make some good decisions. I mean, I always say, I always, the rule of thumb is that long term is 2 years or more of remaining life. We've got a few right now that are coming inside this year and a half window, and I'm thinking, well, do we have enough time? I still think we have the potential for a monster blow off in gold and silver over this, say, next year and a half.
Yes.
Now, so I don't want to say don't buy these, but I think anybody that does buy a few of these now that with a shorter expiration date needs to be aware of. So, maybe you put a little bit less money. But here's the way to do it that you can create almost a perfect hedge for yourself, Kerry, is that you buy, again, you have to like the underlying company. So say if you like Equinox Gold, you buy, and if you had $5,000 you were going to put out there, I would say take half of that, put half into the common shares and half into the stock warrants. Now, what you're hoping is that, say, if the common doubles, you're hoping that the warrants are going to go up 2 to 3 or 4 times that.
Right.
But even if with the common, you got no expiration date, right? So now you're taking the risk off. So pretty much. At least in my mind, that I'm not going to lose money on the common shares because I think all of our companies are going to excel here greatly. But if the common went up and doubled, well, you've covered your cost of the warrants. And so you basically said, well, I'm pretty confident I'm never going to lose money on this transaction.
And
you've got it hedged. Now, and you can play with those numbers, and maybe instead of 50-50, you want to, 25% in the common and the rest in the warrants. But I think for everybody, you can kind of play with that dollar allocation,
I think
and what you do is you take a lot of that risk off of the table. And I've done this with numerous positions that I have, and I feel really good about this. Well, it takes the pressure off. We all need to be able to sleep at night and everything, and yada, yada, yada. So, but there's different approaches. It doesn't have to be all in on any given one. We still have to allocate our dollars out here. Very true. Be sensible about this stuff. But there was a lot of great opportunities. And there was a little one the other day on, forget the name of the pharmaceutical company that I wrote it up, and I had that article that I put it on Talk Markets. And this little warrant could have been bought as low as 1 penny last November, and it has now been up to 50 cents or so. Think about that. 5,000%.
That is amazing. That's incredible.
Staggering.
Yeah.
Just the potential. Now, it definitely has to be on your radar screen, and I wasn't paying attention that it's a pharmaceutical company. They've got something going on with the COVID-19, and all this stuff.
Sure.
and the markets just took off, and it's incredible. So a lot of these stories, I just cannot follow them all myself, but they're in the database.
Yeah.
And so, others of our listeners are interested in pharmaceutical companies or the miners, whatever, and it's like I always say there's something there for everybody.
And I think, Dudley, you've really done a good job in educating us and helping you understand the benefit of these warrants, that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, but to diversify your basket a little bit, hedge it. Buying the common stock makes a lot of sense. So go over to commonstockwarrants.com, sign up now. I'm a definite believer in it. Get your free warrant investing book. It will definitely pay dividends. Any questions or comments for Dudley or myself? We'd love to hear from you. You can just email us kl@kerrylutz.com, kl@kerrylutz.com, Twitter feed @kerrylutz, and of course our main website where you sign up for your free newsletter is financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Dudley, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for taking time out from your day to talk with us.
No, always interesting chat with you, Kerry. So, great to be with you.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.